Paul Cox is leaving IdeaStream after tomorrow. The show you just heard is the last Sound of Ideas he's produced. And just as it was on my first day in 2010, it was a pleasure collaborating with Paul and presenting an interesting and substantive program for you. Paul, who had a long career in television, perhaps you remember him as a former Channel 19 reporter, is at his core a newsman. And that means you could be sure he'd be seeking as many sides to a story as he could find. Paul didn't just produce The Sound of Ideas, he also spent many years as producer for Figler and Friends on WVIZ PBS. I talked with Dick Fegler by phone yesterday about Paul.
The thing I loved about Paul was I never had a job in my life when I didn't have to do most of the writing. And so it was like a luxury to have a guy. Paul basically wrote the show, and he was very good at it. And he took some pride and tried to write like I would have written, which I think he often did, put some jokes in and whatever. But he was a steady Eddie. He was a hard worker. He was always on time. He was very, very meticulous about what he did. And I used to like when we did a promo, I took pride on doing it in one take. But if Paul heard the slightest thing wrong with it, he'd say, well, I got to do that over. Why? But he was very meticulous about that kind of thing.
I write the promos for our show, but always with Paul as a watchful editor. He's saved me great embarrassment several times. That's what great editors do. Fegler recalled the times Paul would speak into his ear during the taping of Fegler and Friends.
Well, I remember one time we were sitting down there, and Paul had decided we ought to do a show with some recent high school graduates to talk about their concerns about will they find a job. So I had 4 of them down there, all the way out of school, and Paul says in my ear, ask them how many of them wear watches. Well, I had no idea what he was talking about, because in my generation, everybody wore one. But Paul knew better. So I said, let me ask you a question. I would always blame it on Paul. I said, Paul wants to know, my producer wants to know, how many of you are wearing a watch now? None of them were. I didn't realize that. Now, of course, with the new watches coming back again, what do they call it, the iWatch or whatever it is, I guess they're all wearing them again. But he knew little things like that, which I never would have thought of asking. And he was in your ear a lot. Now, I don't know about you, Michael, but I did have the temerity occasionally to ignore him. But nevertheless, he was always helpful.
Paul and I communicate mostly through a computer screen, though he does open the producer's mic near the end of every show to say, 2 minutes. So if the shows run long, you'll know why. Not that Paul will care.
I bet he's going to be on every one of these new bike trails they built, which I saw on one of your shows recently.
No doubt Paul will go on many bike rides, but he's got some other plans, too. A couple of weeks ago, on a show he produced about retirement, we asked him to be a guest, and he told us some of the things he learned from the book, Aging with a Plan.
The absolute necessity to stay socially engaged, because that's very important, and you're obligated to contribute to the well-being of others, and we derive value from that. And I would absolutely agree with that, and that's something I will seek out in retirement.
I would think you'll be listening to The Sound of Ideas and calling in with your 2 cents. That's one way to stay engaged.
Oh, you bet.
Congratulations, Paul Cox, on an impressive career and a well-deserved retirement. For the last time, I can tell you that The Sound of Ideas is produced by Lauren Wilson, Amy Cummings, and Paul Cox.